claims to be orbiting the Earth in a huge spaceship. He ranks himself Commander-in-Chief of the Free Federation of Planets. Sounds like something out of a Star Trek movie. Ashtar has recently written a book, channeled through a New York businessman, titled The New World Order, that focuses on astounding predictions regarding the future of humanity. Now let's look at some Old Testament Bible verses. Judges in particular will start. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. Now down here in Judges again. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam and Ashtaroth, and the gods of Syria, the gods of Zidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the children of Ammon, the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord and served not him. Ashtaroth, and you can see here there were a lot of other gods here, and also in Samuel. Put away the strange gods and Ashtaroth from among you. And the children of Israel did put away Balaam and Ashtaroth and served the Lord only. Now, the similarity in the spelling of these two names, Ashtar and Ashtaroth, in my opinion, is not a coincidence. I believe we're dealing with the same entity. So now we have this Ashtar, or Ashtaroth, an Old Testament false deity who is linked to today's UFO phenomenon. Now the Ashtar command boasts many great fleets of spaceships occupied by thousands of well-organized ranks of extraterrestrials. And one of its missions includes the evacuation of selected human souls during cataclysmic events that are soon to occur on Earth. Sounds like a rapture scenario. Now, the Ashtar Command has associates. 4 in particular. And 2 of the associates, or some of the extraterrestrials that are supposedly ranked higher, are Soltec and Munka. And these pictures are circulating the internet or New Age bookstores. 2 other associates involved with the Ashtar Command, or Ashtaroth, are Corton and Athena. Now that's an interesting name. Athena has been recognized as the ancient Greek goddess, the gods of the Old Testament. Now, Athena claims to be a commander of the starship of Sananda. Okay, well, who is Sananda? Sananda claims to be one of the highest ranked extraterrestrials and is often referred to as the beloved commander-in-chief of the Ashtar Command. However, Sananda's main claim to fame is that he claims to be the historical Jesus Christ. He's also recognized as the Master Jesus. And we're going to see how these masters fit into this UFO scenario. Now, the origin of these ascended masters and their connection with present-day New Age teachings goes back more than 100 years. And I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that the New Age movement actually was started because of events that took place in the mid to late 1800s. And at this time, 3 women arose: Helena Blavatsky, Annie Besant, Alice Bailey. They played the part of an occult female trinity, and they claimed to be in contact both physically and telepathically with these ascended masters of the Great White Brotherhood, who claimed residence on the planet Venus, like Adamski's extraterrestrial friend Orthon also claimed residence on Venus. There were higher masters, and they were called the Lords of the Flame. A group of lower masters, known as the Lords of the Seven Rays, was in direct contact with these 3 women. Now, the revelations received by Blavatsky, Besant, and Bailey have since guided the course of today's New Age movement. These 3 women were so influential on this entire New Age movement. Throughout the years, these ascended masters have been referred to by an assortment of titles, such as Spiritual Hierarchy of Ascended Masters is one of their titles. Illumined Ones, which strikingly is similar to the Illuminati. Great White Brotherhood, they're often called. Great White Lodge. Tibetan Masters. That's interesting. Tibetan. Well, actually, their earthly residence is supposedly in the Himalayas, near Tibet. Spiritual wickedness in high places. They're also often called the Masters of Wisdom. Remember that term. The Masters of Wisdom. Now, interestingly, some occultists affirm that these ascended masters are, in fact, spiritual, godlike human beings who possess great magical skills and powers. They supposedly have the ability to control these forces in the spiritual realm.
Aleister Crowley, the man who called himself the Beast 666, black magician, drug fiend, sex addict, and traitor to the British people.
He had so many Masonic degrees that you could fill up 5 pages of a book with them. This guy was probably the most highly honored Mason in the world. He styled himself the wickedest man in the world. He believed himself to be the great beast. And he changed his name to Aleister Crowley, so it would add up in both English, Hebrew, and Greek Kabbalah as 666. In 1904, Crowley had a communication with an extraterrestrial being named Iwas. And this being, through his wife, kind of a channeling type operation, brought forth a book that was called the Book of the Law.
The next thing that happened was that Crowley had a contact with another extraterrestrial that identified itself as Lam. That was the little guy's name. He was short, and he let Crowley draw a picture of him. And oddly enough, this is very much what the picture looked like. It's interesting that, 40 years before we knew such aliens existed, that Aleister Crowley was having conversations with them and drawing pictures of them.
Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs, and was a model in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books of unidentified flying objects, and has been widely recognized as the premier investigating scientist in the realm of this research. In his book, Messengers of Deception, he says, an impressive comparison can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. And in his book, Confrontations, he writes, The medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons. He also made this statement: "I believe when we speak of UFO sightings, as instances of space visitations, we are looking at the phenomenon on the wrong level. We are not dealing with successive waves of visitation from space, we are dealing with a control system." And he states, UFOs are the means through which man's concepts are being rearranged. They are engaging in a worldwide enterprise of subliminal seduction.
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. They seem to be psychologically preparing, setting us up for some ultimate delusion that is too horrible even to imagine as yet. I would agree with that. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that first film that came out about UFOs, the house that the mother and little boy were living in, the toys began running around and screws unscrewed in the presence of UFOs. What the film was saying was the same people that run UFOs run haunted houses. And I would say that's absolutely true.
Oh yeah, it happens to me everywhere. Our house really has all kinds of paranormal activity. You'll see flashes of light. Sometimes furniture will move on its own. The water turns on by itself. You can watch the handle go on. There'll be, like the shower sometimes goes on. All kinds of crazy stuff.
I've taken paranormal investigation groups to his home who have done it for many, many years, some of them up to 30 years. They bring their equipment, electromagnetic field readers, certainly a great number of video cameras, tape recorders, the Geiger counters and other equipment, dozens of pieces of equipment. And in every instance, the things we're able to capture, document, is phenomenal. We can have conversations with whatever they are. We're not sure. You can ask a question of them. You can't hear it, but you can play it back on your tape recorder and you can hear their voice. They will levitate or throw things around the room while you're there. While I'm there, on more than one occasion, the water faucet just turns on by itself and turns off by itself. This has happened in front of many people.
So they came and installed surveillance cameras throughout the house, and the stuff we captured are amazing. These balls, fist-sized balls of red light. Some of the debunkers and some of the skeptics will say, oh, it's a laser pointer, except for the fact that it's three-dimensional, and you can see that it's three-dimensional and it has a tail usually.
En el exterior de su casa también se presentan extraños fenómenos, incomprensibles para Stan y sus amigos.
One of the days we went outside, everything was fine. 5 minutes later, heard another noise, and all the lawn furniture was missing. We couldn't find it anywhere. And we looked and looked, and finally somebody looked on the roof, and we had all our lawn chairs on the roof.
Chairs on roofs, that would, the chairs that you'd walk outside, the chairs would all be out in the garden, or, outside on the lawn. And the next thing you know, they're up on the roof.
También extrañas sombras al exterior y al interior de su casa, en las escaleras, en el sillón y frente a su gato. Incluso esta imagen del control remoto de Stan Romanek, que parece estar flotando en el aire, salvo por esta sombra que parece sostenerlo.
Like a week later, all lined up nice and neat on the kitchen countertop.